The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Get more at servingworlds.com. 9. As Lee returned to the ledge with the sniper rifle, a smaller humanoid mech soared over the back wall and landed silently on the roof. "We got in clean, Paladin," a woman's hushed voice carried through the speakers in the suit's chest as the legs of the 2-meter-tall suit swayed in a very self-satisfied manner on their way to park beside Lee's. He flashed his partner a thumbs up over his shoulder as he slapped out the legs of the sniper rifle's tripod and set it on the ledge. He'd fought General Kapoor about sending backup with him. Yes, comms were down, so they couldn't be challenged. Yes, Reacher mechs were just stolen Gov mechs, and eyeballing one more in the row wouldn't send up a red flag. Yes, having a partner might keep him alive long enough to do his job if something did go wrong. And yes, Second Lieutenant Samin Tenjin, callsign Ghost, had volunteered. That didn't make the likelihood of her death any easier for Lee to stomach. The head of the dull, patchy yellow scout mech slid up. The upper body and legs, down to the knees, butterflied open, and a tiny but fierce woman levered herself up and out. "It's working?" Lee nodded as he manipulated the big scope on the sniper rifle. He sighted in on the weapons platform engulfed in smoke at the base of the opposing tower. Gov reinforcements were jumping into the nest now, hauling out bodies and equipment. More AVs and more mechs filled the wide stone plaza, setting up a dense field of fire between the tower and the shattered commuter rail line beyond it. Ready and waiting for the attackers to return and try again. Which they wouldn't be doing, Lee knew. "Hey, assholes, we're already here." As soon as the ICR had taken control of Gov's satellites, a certain hacker of Lee's acquaintance had used them to bring down Gov's entire network. Scramblers surrounding the row kept them from communicating in code on clear channels too. Which meant somebody had to go tell the boss to his face that the bad men were coming. Lee pressed his eye to the scope and scanned the grounds. No one was humping across the plaza. What were the odds they'd randomly picked the very tower where the Gov commander was hunkered down? He tracked up the side of the building. Got it in one, Lee murmured, tracking the heat signature of a single soldier, hauling ass up a flight of stairs inside that very tower. He tagged the runner and kept scoping floor by floor for anything that could throw off the next stage of the plan. Lee and Samin had literally walked into the row via a series of basement tunnels. Thanks to codes stolen from EarthGov by the same hacker who had crashed their comms network, here they were, right in the center of the Gov stronghold. Of course, neither of them expected to get out alive. Not really. He took another deep drag from the nasal cannula and focused on the world through the sensor scope. Massive stone slabs anchored the tower Lee now scoped out, and every other yellow stone and blue crystal building in the government row was made of the same stone. Scenes from the founding of the Reach colony and its 132-year history were carved in every lintel, beam, and pillar. It was a beautiful place. Or it used to be, Lee corrected himself as his view through the scope reached the 4th floor and encountered the first of many ragged, charred holes. He let the scope guide him back to the runner he'd tagged earlier on. The poor guy was still chugging up the stairs. He scanned the opposite stairwell. It was still empty. He swung the scope down to the ground. Still clear. He focused back on the tagged runner. Unless the ground forces were using tin cans and string to send updates to their CO, this was his guy. Dust and debris crunched under the combat boots of the small, well-muscled woman approaching to Lee's left. The boots were shiny and new, same as the Earther uniform tucked into them. "You find your guy?" Lee looked up and saw Samin viciously tugging her shoulder-length brown hair into a tight ponytail. Striking Persian features were revealed. A plain metal hair clip bounced between her teeth as she talked. Above brown eyes nearly the same shade as her hair were several red indentations. They told the tale of how long Samin's head had been inside her mech suit's neural interface crown for this operation. Lee put his head and his brain back inside the view from the scope. There was too much at stake to leave anything to emotion. Yup, I found my guy. Today, the Reachers took back their planet. Incoming! Cool your jets, Sergeant Jake Grunt Garner chided on the team channel. He'd seen the dozen heat signatures corkscrewing their way before the new soldier's voice had called the audible. Who is that? PFC Bowen, sir, the voice croaked again. Jake pressed his buzzed, bald scalp against the support webbing of his mech cockpit to extinguish an itch. Who? He asked again, chucking a little shit to take his mind off of waiting. Bone? The incoming missiles that followed them back from their hit and run at the base of the tower exploded harmlessly on the far side of the hill, a barricade of plowed stone, rail track, and the spines of toppled buildings, all held together by the blue of Crysteel. He felt damn sorry for the engineer hired to tease this mess apart after the war was over. It would take years. The tech behind the slow-growth crystalline lattice construction was decades old and was a major component of all Reach architecture, especially the massive transparent domes beneath which the majority of Reach food was grown. The idea of exploding ultra-hard crystalline composites into pre-planned shapes and structures, however, was still an inexact science. Wartime had been the perfect petri dish to quickly evolve that technology. What had started as emergency shelters in unstable mine tunnels before the war had been tinkered with to create improvised explosive devices, instantly formed defensible perimeters, and hills like this one. Hills comprised of unstable debris made stable by the glue of a controlled Crysteel explosion. Jake was willing to bet there wouldn't be any commuter trains coming through this track for years, but no missiles were getting through to take out his men either. Bowen, sir, the young soldier repeated, correcting him just as the missiles hit. The kid's voice jumped an octave on the last word. Jake stared at the line of mechs taking cover behind the mountain of debris. He had backed a few meters up from the shield of rubble, keeping an eye peeled for any surprise visitors brave or stupid enough to have followed them out of the row. Lee, Captain Zhang, had left Bowen and 14 more mechs under his command. As expected, the hit and run was a cakewalk, and all had made it safely back to the far side of the mountain before the Gov soldiers knew what hit them. Which one was Bowen? Jake mused and leaned hard into the thick neural interface pads in his helmet. He called up an external camera view from their ride, a VTOL dropship hovering to the right of the rail, right behind one remaining wall of a 5-story building. General Jacques Kapoor had accepted Lee's damn fool offer to neutralize the EarthGov commander in Government Row. The leader of the resistance was up at the top of the world. Kapoor would head the final assault on North Reach at the appointed hour, while his second-in-command was getting ready to do the same here in South Reach. ICR forces were gathering now on the other side of the row. The prospect of killing Earthers didn't dull the pain much. When Jake had said goodbye to 2 comrades in arms this morning, of course Amin had volunteered to go in with Lee. He had no idea if he'd ever see them alive again. Jake grit his teeth and brought his attention back to the here and now. He thought up the names of the troops huddled around him. The neural interface crown in his mech intercepted the thoughts and obligingly drew little yellow boxes on his retina over each mechanized suit displayed by the dropship's camera feed. 2 fire teams of 4 soldiers each, led by 2 corporals, also from Jake's regular unit. All 10 soldiers huddled behind the hill as impatiently as he did. There was Bowen. Jake blinked away sweat. Why the hell could he run, jump, fire, and shoot with ease through the mech's neural interface, but anything that required pointing and poking in the real world was still hard for him? He called up Bowen's status. The kid was a new addition to Corporal DeAngery's fire team, filling in the hole Lance Corporal Cooper left when he stepped on a pressure mine on the march into South Reach City and blew himself into orbit. Garner saw a yellow box around Bowen's ammo count. Look at your ammo count, Private. You're almost down to the bone. Danger, chunk him up. Yes, sir, Corporal DeAngery boomed. Garner watched the mech suit on Bowen's right grab the private and yank him around, almost toppling Bowen's mechanized suit into the mountain of debris. The more seasoned Marine popped a small door on the mech's chest and withdrew a daisy chain of ammo clips. Bowen dropped DeAndre's gifted clips while attempting to reload his forearm-mounted guns from the ammo feeder or toaster because it popped up hot lead when you needed it on the side of his own mech. "Not like that," Danger snarled, kneeling gracefully in his mechanized armor and recovering the clips. "Pay attention." Danger slammed one polymer and metal glove on the side of Bowen's head. "Class is in session." Garner grinned. That was DeAndre. No nonsense and right to business. Jake forced himself to take some breaths and chill out. This wasn't an especially dangerous mission. You could die anywhere, anytime in the field, but this was not the big play of the day. Garner figured the higher-ups had put Bowen here to wipe the green out of him. "You taking notes, Bone?" DeAndre teased the kid over the open line. Jake raised his eyebrows. Just like that, Bowen was Bone. Jake had a feeling the handle would stick around, just so long as Private First Class Bowen did. You have been listening to Reach, The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Music, All This by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Hear more of the story at servingworlds.com. Thank you for listening.